This is Joe Leigh here for Seconds Out. Adam Moralee's joining me. It's not been long since we caught up, but obviously it's less than 2 weeks to go now until Joyce Park and we're at Joe Joyce Media Day. Adam, how are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm very good, thank you.
Okay, so there's a lot to talk about. Let's get involved in this heavyweight fight. In terms of the heavyweight division at the moment, you obviously have AJ, Fury, Usyk. But outside of that, how big is this fight and what are the matchups that are better? Because this is a 50-50 and it's a good fight.
It's a great fight. I mean, I think when you look at the top of the tree, AJ Fury, they're talking about. I think if AJ fought someone like White, Fury, Usyk, I think AJ Wild, you got certain kind of elite fights there. I think after those, this is the next one. The winner of this, Joe Joyce, but the winner of this moves into the elite, in my opinion, and has the right to fight the AJs, the Furies of this world.
I spoke to Joe Parker yesterday and he mentioned he doesn't want the rematch to happen. He wants to stop Joe so that the rematch doesn't need to happen. Right. However, if that was to be the case, there's kind of no way of him getting the title shot without there being an undisputed fight first. So do you feel like the rematch is necessary because of the way the heavyweight division currently looks?
There's a contractual rematch, right? So the rematch is happening if Joe Parker wants it or not, kind of thing. If Joe loses, but Joe isn't going to lose. But in a theoretical situation where Joyce loses to Parker, the rematch will happen. I think undisputed doesn't look, regardless of what you think about AJ Fury, doesn't look like it's going to happen until early next year. So I don't think there'll be a definitive WBO position until probably March next year anyway. So it leaves plenty of time.
So if there was a stoppage, either way, the rematch is still happening?
No, it's a one-way rematch clause. When Joe Joyce beats Joe Parker, there won't be a rematch. There won't be.
And obviously the stuff that has been said, and it's confirmed in the contract as well, is the rematch will be on Sky. That's not like a big thing. For the fighters, that doesn't matter though.
No, I mean, it's great. I mean, if there was a rematch, hopefully there won't be, but if there was, it's great that it's on Sky. Great, more exposure for Joe. Joe loves being on BT. That's his home. That's his channel. But to go on Sky is not a bad thing. You know, Sky are promoting this fight as well. So it's great. It's great for more eyeballs on Joe.
What do you make of Joe Parker's approach to this? He wants the stoppage. He doesn't want the second fight to happen. You're obviously clear that you believe it's going to go the other way.
Yeah, look, everyone's got their tactics, haven't they? And maybe Joe Parker's saying that to make Joe think that he's going to come out in a slightly different way. We have our view on how Joe Parker's going to come out. He's a world-level guy. He's a top guy. Joe Joyce has never taken a fight as seriously as this. He took Dubois very seriously, but he's really stepped it up in this camp to a different level. So we've got our plan, and we respect Joe Parker hugely, and we think we know what's going to happen, and that's our plan accordingly. Joe Parker saying he wants to stop Joe Joyce. Yeah, I'm sure he wants to stop Joe Joyce. I want loads of things to happen too, but it ain't going to happen.
Why is the fight happening in Manchester?
That was the only place. So if you remember back in April, I think it was, when we were looking for July 2nd, we had Wembley Arena booked out. Joe Parker's coach, his wife was pregnant, couldn't do it. So we said, OK, we'll rearrange something then and we'll go for September. At that point in April, May, this was the only venue of a sufficient size that could take it. So obviously neither of the fighters has any connection with Manchester other than that.
So why is this a better time for the fight to take place? Obviously with Joe having more time, fought Hammer in the meantime. Why is now a better time than earlier on in the year?
Yeah, it's better because Joe's just more time in the ring under his belt, more sparring. He had the Hammer fight where he blew off some cobwebs, where we looked at what went on. Salas had more time to work with things. So, you know, Salas is a real craftsman, and he's refining and refining and refining Joe. And he's very happy to have had the additional time with Joe.
Okay, I want to move on to the big news over the last kind of few hours. It's broke today that AJ's accepted all obligations, I guess you could say, and the Fury fight seems closer than it ever has. What would you say else can get in the way? I'm sure you have been involved in these kind of deals before. What could stop this fight before we talk about what happens if the fight does happen? What could stop it at this point?
There's a lot. I mean, look, having been involved in a lot of bigger fights, you have the heads of terms agreed, right? 60-40, 50-50, etc. If there's a will, if both parties really want it to happen, it will happen. There's a number of issues to be dealt with, everything from TV rights to ticketing to lots and lots of different things. But if there is a real will on both parties for this fight, those issues can easily be overcome. If there's not, if one of these parties, I'm not saying they are, but hypothetically, if one of the parties, let's just say hypothetically AJ actually doesn't want the fight, but he's having to come out and say that because he can't live with not saying it, then there are loads of ways to blow the fight up. Like loads of different ways. People can, I've seen fights not happen because people couldn't agree on who walked first. Or, you're seeing at the moment Eubank Ben talks about rehydration clauses and weights. I know that's irrelevant to a heavyweight fight, but there are probably 20, 30 contractual points to agree. When you're looking at rematches as well, they'll have to kind of do a second mini deal on the rematch to be as specific with, you can't just say 50-50. They'll probably be saying when it happens, what happens if one of them gets injured after the fight and there's a rematch. You're dealing with hypotheticals. And when you have loads and loads of hypotheticals, it makes it more and more difficult. There's more things to fall out about. But if both parties want to do it, it will happen. It will definitely happen if they both genuinely want that fight.
Could you see both promoters accepting a DAZN/BT Sports share in the broadcast?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge fight. I mean, I think both broadcasters would do it. BT's, DAZN, super commercial organisations. I think they even spoke about merging before, or they've had commercial discussions. Of course, they'll both be up for it. I mean, there's lots of money. There's loads of money at play. DAZN pay-per-view has just had will have had Ben Eubank. So people will have that. I mean, maybe DAZN pay-per-view will be concerned that it's easier to buy it on BT. But, I don't think it's going to hold it up. They'll both go for it. They'll both be super commercial, those entities. That's not who you've got to worry about. You have to worry about commercial entities driven by money. They're always very, very sensible. You have to worry about people not actually wanting fights to take place and coming up with reasons for it not to happen.
How close is it then? How close do you believe? I know you're not involved in the deal, or you're not in both camps, but how close is this fight to happening?
I think it's close.
Closer than it's ever been?
Yeah, definitely closer than it's ever been. I really hope it happens. I really, really hope it happens. But I think it's properly close. And I also think both parties have come at it with good intentions. I think both parties actually want the fight. I think it will happen.
What would happen then, December 3rd, Cardiff? In this fight, we see AJ going into it with obviously back-to-back losses, but that means no pressure's on his shoulders, and when there's no pressure on your shoulders, often it lifts that burden of having all that pressure, and it maybe goes in there with more confidence.
Yeah, I think that from a management perspective, if you just look at this as your fighter comes off 2 losses, what should he do next? You wouldn't say put him in with the top of the division. That doesn't look like a good management call, right? But I think if AJ and his team have probably learned anything off that Usyk fight, is that he's a huge draw, he's a massive name, and actually the loss and the fact that Undisputed is on the line, does it make the fight any smaller? Maybe a tiny bit. Still a huge fight. So I think AJ goes in, he's now lost that cloak of invincibility, lost twice to Usyk, once to Ruiz. If he loses, you got to, when you're a fighter and you think, what happens if I lose? He's already lost 3 times, what does 4 matter? So I agree with you. He's walking into that fight with no pressure. And people expect Fury to win. Fury will be the big favourite. People have probably forgotten, the general public, very fickle, forgotten just how good AJ is. So I think it's a tremendous fight. And I actually think it is a good time for AJ to take the fight. Because if he loses it, well, everyone said if he loses to Usyk, he's got to retire. But if he loses to Fury, still fights out there. Joe Joyce becomes WBO world champion. He'll fight AJ. No, but I'm saying there's plenty of fights out there. So he's got nothing to lose. What's AJ got to lose? And what's he got to win? Wow. Huge. Beats Fury. Back on top. So, great match.
Who do you think would win that, Adam?
Tyson Fury.
Stoppage?
No. I don't think it's stoppage. I think Tyson Fury probably plays it safe and just knows he'll get the win. Kind of like a bigger Usyk.
But it still does massive numbers. What kind of pay-per-view numbers would you expect from that?
I think you could possibly push 2 million buys for that. It's just absolutely huge. AJ and Fury. In any pay-per-view, there's always an A side, right? There's always someone who's bringing everyone. I think you probably know better than me. Fury White did 700,000-800,000 on BT. I mean, 2 million is absolutely mega. Although Tyson Fury did say he wanted it free to air and he wanted everyone to be let in for free. True. So let's put that to one side. Maybe it won't be on pay-per-view. Maybe it'll be on BBC. Yeah. I don't think so.
You never know. In terms of the A side, of course it is Tyson Fury, but the bigger draw, would you say, is Anthony Joshua? What do you think about that?
No, I think at this moment in time, it's an even draw. I mean, if you go, some people go off like Instagram followers. Okay, AJ's got more Instagram followers, right? I get that point, but I think it's an even. I feel like right now, they are evenly matched. And of course, Fury's going to be the A side. He's the title holder going into it, and he will demand what a title holder demands. But really, that is huge recognition. I mean, everyone on the street, every casual, everyone who's probably not even a casual, is going to recognise that fight because it's AJ and Fury. It's the two biggest names in the division going against each other. Fantastic.
Brilliant. Okay, I will leave on this one a note to the people. Why should they tune in? Not long to go now, and we have a good heavyweight fight in Manchester.
It's the biggest fight right outside the elite right now. The winner goes on to join the elite. It's a British undefeated guy. I think he's the only guy in the top 10 with a 100% record. He's an Olympic silver medalist. He's been getting better and better, and I think after this, it's going to be a huge amount of Juggernaut fans wanting him to go on and become undisputed.
You mentioned the Olympic silver medal. We heard about a year ago that the Olympics were looking into turning that into a gold. Is there anything being...
No updates on that. But yeah, they're still looking at it. Well, they're kickboxing out the Olympics now, haven't they? So who knows what might happen.
Okay, we hope that changes, but thanks for your time, Adam. Thanks a lot.